One of the first things you want to do is make sure that we assemble the mount secure receiver, because that will allow us to do the assembly of the carrier on a stand. And the first thing to do is to locate that on either side of the box. You'll see the instructions here on the top. The mount secure receiver body is on the side. And as we take that apart, you'll also find the hardware kit for assembling it. On the other side is the load bar shank. And this is what the body of the mount secure receiver will mount to. We've already measured our hitch receiver, and we're going to assemble it for this vehicle in a lower mode because the hitch receiver is actually very high in the back of the vehicle. In the hardware kit is everything you need for both the assembly of the mount secure receiver as well as mounting the mount secure receiver to the hitch. The long bolts and lock nuts and flat washers are for assembling the mount secure receiver. The lock washers and the stainless steel bolts are going to be used for putting it on the back of the vehicle. You'll note we supplied 2 sets. The aluminum shims, we'll show you where that gets assembled later. So we can assemble right here on top of the Boundless carrier. We measured the hitch receiver, and we're going to assemble the load bar shank in the low position. It'll work either way, so if you have a lower hitch receiver, you may want to put it in the higher ground clearance setting to allow for clearance on the vehicle and the wheels of the carrier. So for us, we'll put it in this way. We're just going to hold that by hand with a flat washer on one side of the long bolt. We'll line that up and set it through. Flat washer on the other long bolt, and we'll set it through. Using the lock nuts and the other flat washers on the opposite side, we'll go ahead and tighten this. Now this is going to be a little tight initially because of both the lock bolt and also some of the Loctite that we've put on the bolt itself so that this doesn't loosen up. And then using a set, I'd like to use a box end wrench as well as a ratcheting wrench. 3/4 inch will work. They're metric size, but the 3/4 inch works fine. I'm sure you probably have that. So we'll go ahead and tighten these up. So we brought that to a semi-tight condition. You still have some movement. And what we want to do is just check that the front face of the mount secure is square with the load bar itself. We'll go ahead and finish tightening those nuts now that we've recognized that it's square to the front face. We can adjust that later if we're off a little bit and the Boundless carrier is hanging a little bit low to the back or high to the front. We can do that with this adjustment screw here on the load bar. So you loosen up the bolts, turn that one way or the other to get a little bit better angle for the Boundless carrier when it's on the back. We're all set now to put it on the back of the vehicle. As we go to put this into the hitch receiver on the back of the vehicle, you'll notice that the load bar has a threaded opening, one on either side, to get the best match with the openings on your hitch receiver. As we set this in place, you'll notice that there's always a little bit of play in a 2-inch hitch receiver. So we provide an aluminum shim to take a large portion of that out. We typically put that on the bottom, slide it underneath as we slide in the hitch receiver. I've gone ahead and lined this up with my hole and thread on this side. I'm going to take the bolt that's provided. It's a metric thread, but it's a 3/4 inch again on the head. So we can go ahead and thread this in easily hand tight, and we'll go back to our ratchet, and it is solid. It's not moving. May be obvious, but we'll want to save the extra set of shim, bolt, and lock washer in the Ziploc bag. So the next step in the process is really to set up the Boundless carrier itself. The first step to do that is to put the handles, which are in the box on this side, up on the carrier itself. So paying attention to where the tines are at and working with a friend, because this is heavy, we're going to pick this up and set it right on top of the mount secure receiver. The next step will be to pull the hardware kit out of the box, which is the bottom. It's the long rectangular box, and it contains the rest of the hardware as well as the tools that we'll need to complete the assembly. The first thing we'll want to get a hold of is the bolts and tool kit, the hardware kit. You have 2 Allen wrenches included that should help aid all the assembly, and assortment bolts and some additional nuts that we'll take you through as we use them. Also in the box, you'll find one other smaller box, and we'll need that. And these are actually the side bar brackets. You'll notice a difference in the brackets for the side bars as opposed to the back bars, and that difference is a radiused front. The ones in the back are going to be very flat up and down because the bars can go all the way down. We're going to take one out and assemble that to the frame. And the way that we'll do that is find an orientation where the pin is facing to the outside. For that to assemble it, we're going to need a couple of the black bolts that have Loctite on them and the smaller of the 2 Allen wrenches. So you'll know you have the right bracket in your hand when this bumper is vertical, straight up and down. Stick it in there, just hand tighten it before we go to the Allen wrench. But in this case, again, we're looking for the pin to be facing toward us. We're going to line it up. In this case, I'm going to start from the bottom first and then on the side. And then use the Allen wrench to tighten everything up. Our next step is to install the foot pedal. You'll find that there's a bolt already threaded into the foot pedal. You can use it if you prefer to use a wrench, or in the instructions you'll also see that we've included an 8mm 30mm long hex cap screw that can be assembled with the Allen wrench. So it's really up to you which one you'd prefer to utilize. They both will fit and thread in directly. You may have a part left over at the end of it. I'm going to go ahead and use the hex cap screw, and we'll proceed with the assembly that way, using the larger Allen wrench to do that. You'll see that the foot pedal has a bend, a straight section, and then a bend up. You want that to be in the bent up position and slide it underneath into the foot pump hole. You'll find the hole, but once you've got it started, you can use your Allen wrench and tighten it up. So the next step is actually assembling the handles, but in order to do that, we want to pump the wheels down to the ground and actually disengage it from the rotation cams. So the first thing we'll do is just do this by hand and see if we have pressure in the pump. We don't, so we're going to need to adjust the hydraulic pressure valve. So this is actually the hydraulic pressure valve, and you'll see that it's got a bolt and it's been tightened. So what it's doing is actually releasing the pressure. So we want to use a little adjustable wrench, loosen this up. Okay, you see how that, we can just slide that back, and then we can loosen the bolt itself, and that plunger valve should back off. You'll notice that as we're underneath it, I can go back to the pump with my right hand and determine if we've got pressure, and I do. At that point, I can tighten this back up, and we'll come back to that later, but we can put our wheels down. With the wheels down and our handle halves still sitting on the top of the carrier, we'll want to bring one handle half around and pass the cable between the rotation cams and the roller. We'll line up these with their associated holes and thread using the longer hex head cap screw, stainless steel. We'll put it up through there. We'll hand tighten into its thread. Grab the other one and do the same. You notice now why we had to put those brackets on first, because we couldn't put them on if this is already in place. Again, using your Allen wrench, we'll tighten these the rest of the way. Our next step is to assemble the crossbar or grip bar for the handle. And to do that, we're going to use barrel bolts that are also included in the hardware kit. And you'll see a small threaded bolt and then a female threaded barrel. And we're going to pass that through one another and connect the handle halves. Hand tighten. We'll grab the other handle half that hasn't attached to the frame as yet and place it in the same manner. We can go ahead and attach the other handle half. Again, we'll see that the cable is through on the inside of the rotation cam. We can use our bolts to help us find our location. Get those started. Go back to our Allen wrench and tighten those in. So then we'll finish the handle assembly by just tightening up those barrel bolts with the smaller of the Allen wrenches. Typically, if you hold the other side with your hand, it's enough to get those to tighten. That's on there. And really, the Boundless carrier is ready for operation now, with the exception of putting the guardrails on the sides and the ends, which we'll take you through next. All we need to do is take it off the mount secure receiver just so that we have 360 access to the frame. To do that, the first instruction on undocking is you use the right handle lever and we pull that up. That releases the lock that is on the mount secure receiver, and we pump the wheels the rest of the way to the ground, and you'll notice how it just lifts right out of the mount secure receiver. On mine, I've got the brakes on, so I'm going to have to take the brakes off, and now I can just roll it away. We'll start by showing you how to assemble the rest of the side guardrail first, and the side guardrails you'll see that are in the box in between some of the packaging. So we'll pull one of those out. There's not a left or a right, they're both the same. And we'll lay that on top, and we'll get our second bracket. Grab the mating bracket for the front side rail, which you'll notice again is the radius. Pin sticking out to the outside, flat bar to the outside, and we're going to bring our bolts over as well. Install the front rail. We've already put the bracket on. Now we're going to place the nylon washer, which is black, over the pivot pin. We then place the guardrail, the lower hole there, and the push pin goes in the top hole. On the opposing side, we're going to again put the nylon washer on the pivot pin and do the same before we actually put the screws or the bolts in. And now we'll line that up. On this one, I'd like to start on the bottom, just so it holds it in place. We'll grab the other bolt and thread it right in. We're going to do the same thing, complete the other side guardrail. For the end guardrails, now we're using the straight up and down. So as we've shown in previous, put the nylon washer. It looks black. It looks like a regular washer, but it's actually a nylon washer. And we're going to put that on the side. You'll notice on the end brackets, they're straight up and down, pin facing out, and we're going to go ahead and install that. Following the same process as we did on the sides, put the nylon washer on the bracket, actually place the one side installed. We'll do the same here on the opposite side, and then we can place the bracket on.